everybody, and welcome back to Mel's Board Game Room. So we are doing our top game of the month of January 2025. So we're already a full month in this new year. And actually, so far, it's been a pretty good month for gaming. So let me show you actually. Um, I have played 69 times of 44 different games. So I did end up attending a 4-day getaway in the mountains. It was my friend's birthday, so she hosted like a 4-day board game day, and I played 42 games that one weekend. So that definitely helped. Now if you look, it's only 3% of my base collection. I am at over 1,000 games now in my collection, so I think my that percentage is gonna stay pretty low. But let's have a look at which one made the top nine. So in number nine position is Bohnanza. You know what? I just can't get enough of Bohnanza. Like, and it's not one that I play all the time, but. And these were with a bunch of new board gamers as well. Like they had not played Bohnanza before, so we ended up playing it, and it's just so satisfying. This is just such a perfectly designed card game, and it's a negotiation game because in this game you're going to get a hand a card, and you can't sort them. You have to play them in the order that you receive them. And when your turn starts, you have to plant that first bean that is in front of you into your garden. And your garden has room for two. And you can only plant similar beans in the one space in your garden. So, and the more you have, so in this game I had the coffee bean. So the more coffee bean I have, the more points it's worth. So in this one, you can see if I have 10 cards of the coffee bean, that would give me 3 coins. But if I get 12 cards of coffee bean, that would give me 4 coins. So you're trying to get the most similar beans in order to be able to plant them. So all those other beans that are in your hand that's in the way, you're going to try to negotiate and trade them away. And it sometimes like, oh, I see you have a coffee bean, because you'll plant a card, then you put 2 cards that are in the market, and then the active player will kind of trade those. So you're gonna be like, oh, I'll take your coffee bean. I'll give you a wax bean. And they're like, well, I don't want a wax bean. Okay, I'll give you a steak bean. So I'll take your steak bean, but you got to take the wax bean. Like any type of negotiation is okay. I was like, okay, I'll donate this wax bean, like trying to get it out of the way so that you can get to your coffee bean or whatever's in your hand. This game is just always so fun. Every time I play it, I just absolutely adore it. And that's my number nine, Bohnanza. Then in number eight position for the month of January is Master Labyrinth. Now, I have never played any of the Labyrinth game, although I've been wanting to. Every time I looked at it, it's like, okay, this game looks so intriguing. I really want to try it. My friend had given me this copy because I was doing community board games, and he said, oh, this would be a good one for like all player, kind of all ages. And oh my God. I loved it. So with Labyrinth, and I'm thinking the base Labyrinth, this is where you have all these tiles. Now, some tiles are permanent. They won't change. But on your turn, you take a tile and you slide it in on the side. There are certain areas you can slide a tile, and then all the tiles slide, and then like the labyrinth changes. And then you have your little player, and then you can move within the corridor that you have access to. So that was so clever. And then on these tiles there are treasures, and you got to collect these treasures in numerical order. So you got to collect a number one before you can collect number twos, and so on. And in this particular version, there's also 2 gargoyle around in this labyrinth, and there's also the dragon, and you roll a dice. It's the dragon dice, and if it's the gargoyle, then they're going to attack whatever's in their corridor. Now, if there's nobody else in the corridor, nobody gets attacked. If you roll the dragon shows like a certain amount of kind of round arrows around it, and that's how much the dragon will pivot. And then the corridor he's facing, then he attacks in there. And if you end up getting attacked, you need to duel them. And you would roll your dice, and if you get 1 to 3, you've lost a duel. If you get 4 to 6, then you win the duel. If you lose the duel, you lose your lowest priced treasure. And then that can happen multiple times, which is problematic. And then at the end of the game, it's whoever has the most treasure point wins. Now, to end the game, you need to duel the dragon, but like it's kind of a different kind of duel. You need to defeat the dragon, and you got to roll a d6 3 times and get more than 15 points. That seems high. Is it more than 12 points, I think, maybe? And then if you successfully defeat the dragon, you get to keep that dragon. It triggers the end of the game, and he's worth 15 points. So it doesn't mean you will win, but it means it will help. And actually, when we played this one, I didn't defeat the dragon, but I had so much treasure that I still ended up winning. I was so impressed with this one. We had such a blast. And that was Master Labyrinth, my number 8. Then in number 7 position, this was a game that I played at that 4-day getaway, and this is called Fairy Ring. And it's funny because I had played it, I was like, okay, yeah, it's cute. And then when I was sorting which game I thought would be my top 9, I was surprised that this one made it. Not that it's not a good, it's just, I don't know. I didn't realize I enjoyed it as much as I did, but when I was comparing it to all the other games I played it, I was like, oh yeah, no, this was better. It's like, oh yeah, no, I like this one better. And I don't own this one. If I come across it, it's one that I would definitely be tempted with. This is a drafting game, so you get so many cards. You're gonna look at them. There's all these different type of mushroom that you're going to be adding into your garden, and each mushroom has a different ability. Most will kind of give you a way of scoring in some form or fashion. And then when you land on that particular mushroom, you're going to score whatever is, you've developed there. But you can play multiple mushrooms on top of each other. So if you have the same mushroom, it's up to you. You could start a new mushroom, or you could stack on the same mushroom to make it bigger. And depending on what the mushroom does, like, you may want to do that. And in the corner of the mushroom, it also has a number that indicates how many movement your character is going to move by. Now, and what's really interesting is you're going to move along your board from mushroom to mushroom. Then you're going to move along the other player's board, mushroom to mushroom, and so on. And you kind of go around the whole table. So it's like, okay, it's my turn. I'm going to add a mushroom to my own garden. It has a number 3 in the corner, and I'm over across the table. So you move me 3 spaces. It makes me land on this mushroom. And then you can only score that mushroom if it's already existing in your own board. So you want to have matching mushroom if you can, so that you can score when you land on other people's board. And then when you do, you get to decide if you want to score their mushroom or the one that you have, in case yours is worth more points. And then you count those points. And then it's like tokens that you get, but then anytime you get, and I can't remember if it's like 9 but anytime you get so many tokens, you trade them in for a point, and you keep score of this point in this little dial. It was just, the whole thing was so interesting. The art is beautiful and whimsical, and it was a lot of fun. So that was my number 7, Fairy Rings. In number 6 position, might be one of the biggest game I've played this weekend, this month, and this was Arcs. Oops, sorry, I went too far. Arcs. So I had heard a lot of conflicting information about this one. Some people said, oh, it was great. Some people said, oh my god, it was terrible. What were they like? I just heard both ways, and I really enjoyed this one. So this is kind of a zoom on the board, but on the side there's like a bunch of cards. This game has like a deck building element to it. Or is it deck building, or is it trick taking? It's a trick taking. I'd have to, I've only played the one time. Excuse me. But what was happening is it's a very minute, small element. There's some sort of card situation. I think it's trick taking that will kind of reflect on what you get to do. And I think is because they had, like, and it's unusual. You don't see that kind of mechanism in a board game, and it worked so well. It was great. But I think because it was kind of like people were talking about it, people who played it, who expected grandiose things from this mechanism in the board game, were felt like a letdown, because it's not it's not like if you think it's a trick taking game, it's not going to be a trick taking game. Like it's really based on what, like it's a minute part of this game, but it's such an interesting part of this game that made this whole game very interesting. But this is an area control battling game. You start with 2 tokens on the board and some ships, and when different action that you can do, you can kind of collect resources from the planet. So where you have your tokens, you get to collect resources that is associated with that particular planet only if you have majority there. So you want to make sure that you have more ships there than other people. You can attack other ships. You can move your ships. Um, the whole thing was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I was doing not too bad in the area control, but to win the game, you need to have the most points. And as you play, some of the actions you can activate is that you can, because first, like the active player will play a card, and that kind of indicates the suit of that round. So if he plays like a red card, and I'm saying red, I don't remember if they were red, but if you play a red card, then that means you can play another red cards, but it has to be a higher value in order to activate what's on there. If you play any other color or a lesser card, then you can activate one action instead of like multiple of what was on there, and then but you can always match the original card, but you can only do the one action of it. So that aspect was really interesting, kind of what you would play. But one of the action that you can activate is kind of placing a token on one of the end round goals, and then that is going to score depending on whoever had the majority of that would get the points for that round. And that could be whoever has the most workers, kind of collected the most workers or collected the most ships. There was 2 sets of tokens, or who has like it was different things, but those are what gives you points, and that is what the whole game is about. You're trying to collect these. So I kind of got caught a little bit on trying to get control of the board, and I was doing not bad on the board, but I didn't do great on collecting these points, so it really didn't matter. I was not even close to winning, but I really did enjoy this game, and I thought all the different mechanism that they had put into play was so interesting. This was a really neat, different game, and I really liked it. So that's my number 6, Arcs. Then in number 5 position, I have Harmonies. I've played it again with some of the new. Some of my friends had not had the chance to play this one, and we played this one, and we played Cascadia, and it was unanimous. Everybody enjoyed Cascadia, but much preferred Harmonies. And this one is okay. So first of all, it looks so good. The wooden chunky bits that you add and stack onto your board, that has such a pleasant gameplay aspect to it. It's so satisfying to put all of this together. Then all the artwork and the different cards and of animals that you're going to collect, so satisfying as well. So on your turn, you're going to take 3 wooden tokens from the main board in one like there's different clusters, so you're going to pick one cluster. You're going to add these wooden tokens onto your board, and you're trying to create patterns that are going to match the animals that you have in front of you or that are still in the market, so you can collect them. And every time you manage to create that pattern on your board, you can put an animal cube that would represent the animal. And every time you take a cube off of your card to place it on your board, that card is going to be worth more points. And then you kind of go until you kind of mostly fill up your board. That triggers the end of the game. And then you go till everybody's got the same number of round. And then you score the value of your cards. But you also score the placement of your tokens on your board, because you're trying to create different patterns with that as well. That'll score different ways. So the mountains will score one ways, the water will score one way, the trees, the taller they are, will score one ways. It was just so neat. I've played this one a few times. I absolutely adore this game. It is so fun, and that's my number 5, Harmonies. Then, in number 4 position for the month of January is a brand new game that just released, and that is Finspan. So this is a version of the Wingspan game, and it's all about fish. This, I think, this one by far was the easiest one to learn, to teach, and to get to the table. It plays fairly quickly as well. Um, Very similar to Finspan mechanism. You will gain cards, you'll add cards to rows. You can activate your row and activate all the action along that row of each card and what they do when activated. You're gonna place fish eggs on those cards, and then now where it differs, where it gets a little bit different, is you can hatch those fish eggs and put a fish token, and then you can cluster the fish token. There's like a little yellow fish token, and if you get three of them in the same area, then you can trade them for a school of fish token, and that's the red one, and they're worth more points. But this one was so satisfying. Um, I have played it, I want to say 4 times, maybe 4 times now, and every time everybody quite enjoys it. Um, like I said, it's a simpler gameplay. It's very simple to play and get to the table, but there's a lot to consider. There's lots of strategies that you're building. You're trying to make your optimal goal, because like Wingspan, each round you're going to score something different. Now you're going to have the choice to do the A side of that scoring card and where it's preset, or you could do the B side and it's kind of randomly selected, so the game would change more and more. For the first game, they suggest you play the A side, and because I was playing with a bunch of new people every time I played this game, I've only played the A side so far, so I'm interested in trying it with the B side and see how. Now with the A side, it's very linear, right? So you're going to score the single fish and the eggs first, then you're going to score kind of rows of fish, then you're going to score the schools of fish. So it would be a lot more complicated if it came in the different order. That's a school of fish before the single fish. So I can see, like, it makes sense, and it kind of builds their strategy nicely as well. But then, you go down and you go diving and activate all these cards. And for each section, if you have a fish in that section, you get to activate it and get a card or get a fish, or you can hatch a fish. And then the next section, like, they got the different depth in the water. And if you go deeper and there's a card there, then you get to activate that action again. It's really neat, really straightforward game. I quite enjoy it, and it's one that's going to be so easy to get to the table. So Finspan, my number 4 for the month of January. Quite like it. Oh, and my picture shows the upgraded bits, because otherwise it's all cardboard, and you have like a fish image on the one side and you got the egg on the other, and then you have extra cardboards of the school of fish. I really recommend the upgraded components because they're so beautiful. The cardboard are here, but I mean, like, it doesn't affect the gameplay at all, but it is so satisfying to play with the upgraded bits. So I do recommend those if you can get them. If you end up getting the game and you want the upgraded bits, very well worthwhile in my opinion. Then in number 3 position for the month of January is Obsession. This was the first big game that we played on the weekend when we went to Infamir. And it's funny, I carpooled with my friend Travis, and he was asking me, what game are you hoping to play? And I was like, I'm hoping to play Obsession. Like, I've owned Obsession. I have played Obsession before. But just the one time before, because I just recently bought it. So I hadn't played my own copy yet. And I was like, I would like to play this one again. And he's like, oh, tell me about it. So I'm telling him about it. How, we're this fancy family in the Victorian era, and we're putting all these events trying to boost our reputation, and there's courtship going on. He's like, but I mean, like, the main thing with it is, like, depending on what you have in your hand, who you want to bring out to these different events, you need to have the appropriate staff to take care of these people. And it's kind of bit worker placement, maybe not worker placement, but you'll place the staff, and you need the person you want to bring out, then you need to have the staff assigned to them. Now, because they're assigned to them, you can't use them elsewhere. And because you've, put your staff to work, you can't use them next round because they're going to have to get a break before they're ready to work again. So very much Downton Abbey, the board game, and it's perfect. It's beautiful. And he's like, wow, this sounds horrible. I can't wait to play it. So the theme did not appeal to him at all, but we had a blast. And then it was funny because I was watching him play, and it's like a couple of times though he's like, "Well, I'm gonna have to pass. I can't do anything," and it wasn't going great for him. But he ended up being in second place. So he did better than you think, and it's one of those games that as you play, you can't tell who's winning, right? Like there's a few different things that's affecting, but you really can't tell. So, because there's nothing more frustrating than playing a game where you know you're losing and you're playing to lose and you're just waiting for the game to be over so that you can take your loss and move on, and that kind of takes away from the enjoyment of playing the game. But when you're playing it, it's like, I don't know. So I think I'm doing badly, but I think Ashley's doing worse, or whatever's going on. Um, so satisfying. I really, really enjoy this game. I'm glad this one is in my collection again, and I cannot wait to play again. We did play with like we played my friend's copy, and she had the metal coins, and these are amazing metal coins. But yes, Obsession was my number 3 for the month of January. Then number 2 position is a game that I finally got off my shelf of shame after, I think I checked it, it was 3 years. I have honed this game for 3 years. I went to buy it and I was like, no, geez, and it's secondhand, but it was pricey. Like but it's a big game and there's a lot of components. And I looked into it and then there's all the dice and I was like, I don't know. So I did finally get it to the table twice this month, and that is too many bones. And I am so pleased with this. So at first, I thought it was going to be really complicated. So I think it was kind of part of it's like, okay, I need to learn this, but it's going to be such a complex game. It's going to be so hard. Each character have a big kind of instruction on how to play, and it's double-sided, so it was daunting. Um, but I watched a couple of tutorials and we went through the rule book, and actually this game is really not that hard to play, not that hard to learn, and it was so neat and interesting. And you have your character and you have a poker token for your character. Then you put a bunch of red poker tables like that you'd stack on top of it, and that's your health. So you kind of stack your health there, and then as you play, if you're going to battle and you get defeated some, you lose some of your poker chips. And like the whole poker chips aspect of the game was amazing. Then you have neoprene boards for everything, and then you have cutout in your neoprene boards for where you're gonna put the dice, which was amazing. And each character have their own set of dice, their own abilities. You can play them a little bit differently. You're gonna upgrade your abilities, because you want to upgrade your attack to show how many dice you can bring into an attack. You want to have your defense as well, but then you want to have, and I can't quite make out what it was, and I forget what it is, but is it dexterity? And then the dexterity is how many dice you can roll during your turn. But then there's also your skill dice that you can bring out and put to use. Um, it was great. Then you get the baddies. Like that's what they actually call the baddies. They have their own health, their own abilities, and then they're gonna move in different ways when you go into an attack. But this is very story driven. So you're gonna go and you're gonna flip a card. It's like, okay, you're going into battle starting tomorrow. You're so excited, you can't sleep. So do you want to train some more and get more skills? Or do you want to go and kind of see the merchants in your village and get some more items before you go? So there's always a decision that you make as a group. This is a cooperative game. And then so then you go to the next card after you defeat that, and then you flip it over and you get another choice. And the cards are either going to be like a peaceful where it's training and things like that, or where it's going to be like you're going into battle. And then you do the whole battle portion, which is so exciting. I was so pleased with this. So good. So glad I got it off the shelf of shame finally. So glad I owned it. But yeah, so I've finally got to play, but I ended up playing it twice. So I think that's a win. No, like it brings my cost per play. I'm kind of keeping track of cost per play. So it brings my cost per play to like $80 a play. So I do need to play this game quite a bit more before it's my purchase is worthwhile. But I'm not disappointed. This was an amazing game. Then for the final game that made the top one for the month of January. You're not going to be surprised. This is one that's made my list a few times. And this is Dune Imperium Uprising. Now, one thing I would highly recommend is when you play this game, because we played it a couple of times last year. And this, like, my first play of it was the most epic game I have ever had. It was amazing. And it was ended up with me and Travis tying for first. And he ended up winning with one spice. He had one more spice than I did. And that got him the win and the tiebreaker. But it, like, the whole thing felt so, like it was just so exciting that I was excited. So I got my own copy. I've played it with Lee a couple of times, and then this last week we watched a Dune movie series, and they're like, okay, let's watch Dune, and then we're gonna play it this week. So we ended up playing it, and I should have do like a quick review video just to refresh some of the thing, because some of the stuff I was like, okay, wait, I forget, and I had to kind of. So it was a bit of a slow start, but then it was like, okay, no, okay, we're good now. So we kind of got playing it. It's good. If it's a game you haven't played, just watch a quick review just to refresh everything. But it was still so good. And after playing it, I was like, okay, now that everything is fresh, I kind of want to play it again. We haven't yet, so I'm gonna have to refresh before we do play it again. But Dune Imperium Uprising is so satisfying. So, and I haven't talked about the game at all, but it's worker placement where you're going to place your your worker on the board to activate different action. But you need to have that card in your hand in order to be able to go and activate that area. So you're going to play some cards to activate some of the action in the board, and that could be, giving you space or spice, or giving you water, because water is pricey and it's will cost you some action. You can put people into battle, and you're going to battle on in like the sand dunes. You can actually get sandworm into battle as well, and then whoever wins that round gets certain abilities, but second place gets set, not abilities, but like to get prizes, and that's going to change every round as well, because it's randomized and it flips, and it's, okay, this is what we're going to be battling for this time. And you got to build up in your relationship with the different houses, and then that's going to unlock some things that you can do. Some locations you can't go to until you've built up those relationships. The whole thing is so good. The artwork is all based on the movie. Like you can see recognize all the different characters. So having watched a movie recently and play it again, it's like, oh yeah, remember this guy? Like, so it does kind of not improve the gameplay, but it makes it more exciting just because you get a different aspect of appreciation to it. But yeah, Dune Imperium Uprising, great game. I absolutely loved it still and again, and I can't wait to play again, but definitely worth revising it, just kind of get familiar with it so you're not learning it all over again. Here is all my 9 games that made the list here again. So I always use Pub Meeple when I sort which game is going to make the listing. And Pub Meeple is great because you'll enter all the games. So I enter all the games that I've played in January. Then it brings up comparisons like, hey, between Finspan and Harmonies, which did you like better? And you push on it, and it does bunch of comparisons, so it creates the list for you. It's time consuming. Be ready to dedicate time if you want to do it that way, if you want to do a top 9. But here is a recap of my stats for January. So now I use BG Stats to keep track of all of my gameplays and all of my board games. And they created this at the end of the year, where you could get like a neatly put together stat like this, which is great when you're sharing it. So my most played game was Seven Dragons, which was so fun. But it's a quick, simple card game. Caution Sign, we had a ton of fun with it. Piles is one of those that you play multiple times in a row. But yeah, so 69 plays, my H index. And if you're wondering what that is how many games have you played that many times or more? So I have played 4 games 4 times or more during the month of January. If I had played Parade one more time, it would still be 4, because it would, in order to go in the next H index, I would have had to have 5 games, 5 plays or more. It's just an interesting one to kind of see like replayability. Are you playing your game lots. I ended up playing in 13 location, and out of the whole month, there was only 14 days that I ended up playing. I did put in my challenges to play every game, a game every day. That is not going well. Like, it's not going well at all. But I am enjoying it. Just keep track of which days I've played, and then these are all the games that I ended up playing in the month of January. So these 25s, and then these ones here as well. So if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Facebook. My Facebook page is Mel's Board Game Room. I'm also on Instagram at Mel's underscore board game underscore room. I also have a podcast that I do with my friend Carla. Actually, on this Monday, we just did our top 9 games that we played at the retreat in Invermere. So if you want to see which one we played that weekend only, do go watch that. And then I also have my YouTube channels, Mel Board Game Room. So thanks so much for tuning in. Bye, everybody.